Ladies, gentlemen, and genetic anomalies, what is happening? Well, honestly, way too much. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. But if not, hopefully today's stream makes your day at least a little bit better. I'm your host, Dan Newbie, coming to you live from the East Coast of the United States of America. And we actually don't have a whole lot of things to talk about today. We're not going to be covering a wide range of topics. We're actually mostly, during the course of this stream, going to be talking about the whole situation that I'm sure you guys have heard of with Charlie Kirk. And there are different things we're going to talk about. I'm going to kind of just talk about just how violent things have been lately in the United States. I'm going to talk about Charlie Kirk a little bit as well. I'm also going to talk about some responses that people have had. This is going to be a bit of like a Charlie Kirk stream, very Charlie Kirk centric. I don't always feel like just talking about one specific topic, but I think that for today, it's actually appropriate. Brayleno
said in the chat,
says,
I watched the Charlie Kirk vid the second it happened, bro. It traumatized me.
That's awful. See, and that's why you need to stay off the internet. For real though.
Brayleno,
by the way,
said in the chat, turn TDS off.
I've literally never had someone in the TTS or in the chat literally say like, hey, turn off TTS. But hey, actually, Brayleno, if you want to hop into the stream, I actually do think it'd be nice to kind of get your perspective as sort of like a true full-blooded Gen Zer. It'd be nice to hear what your perspective is on this situation.
Brayleno,
because you sort of strike me as someone who's apolitical.
FYP.
You sort of strike me as someone who is apolitical. Hold on, wait a second. Are you... Did I give you a backstage pass? You know what? Never mind. If you want to go in the stream, send a message into the chat. I will turn off the TTS just for you. Actually, not just for you, because it sounds better on the saved clips if the TTS isn't running. But yeah, this whole thing with Charlie Kirk is absolutely crazy. The wild thing is that I've been seeing some people online saying, things like this, this is not surprising if you've been paying attention. Which I understand the sentiment because, if you've been following things going on in America, like I'm going to be honest, right? I am actually a somewhat long time political observer. Actually, probably been observing politics for way longer than I should have been. I spent like my childhood, evenings, afternoons, even mornings listening to talk radio. So I've been observing politics for the vast majority of my 25 year long life so far, and at least from what I could tell and what I can remember, the tenor and I guess, for lack of a better word, the vibe of the United States has never been this bad, right? I mean, if you take even before all the Charlie Kirk stuff and before everything that happened today, with the assassination of Donald Trump, stuff like that, you would have never expected to have seen that. I don't think, in 2012, you would have never expected to see the president of the United States get assassinated. We've had people attack members of the government at the state and local levels, all across the country, whether it be arson attacks, shootings, physical altercations that don't use any weapons. You could kind of, I off the top of my head, I'm thinking of 3 or 4 or 5 different instances of such acts of violence occurring. And one thing I like to do when I talk about these types of events is I like to be optimistic. I like to go on here and I like to say, violence is never the answer. Maybe parents will get their act together and parent these children better. Maybe things will sort of calm down a bit and we'll see less violence. But, it's it's kind of hard to be optimistic at this point, I will say, as far as the direction in which the country is going, because it doesn't really seem like anyone is particularly interested in calming anything down. Maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, but at least when you look at the people who are speaking out vocally online, it doesn't really seem like people are that interested in taming their rhetoric. For example, you watch cable news, a whole lot of people were spending a lot of time criticizing Charlie Kirk and condemning his views. I think that, if for a guy who just got assassinated with his wife and children allegedly there, I don't think that the first thing you should really be doing, or even the sixth or seventh thing that you should be doing, is spending time condemning his political views. I mean, I think what you should be doing is, if you're in the news, you cover the story, kind of talk about, what's the next steps, as far as finding the shooter or whatever. Maybe even talk about, what it might possibly be like to be a member of a family that's been affected by something like this before. Because, I mean, imagine being Charlie Kirk's wife or child at the moment, right? I'm not quite sure how you move forward, or like move past something like this, like something this visceral, especially like in your face, if they indeed were there. I mean, I think that rivals things that war veterans see, right? In experience, right? I mean, war veterans, they go, they make friends with the fellow soldiers. They see gnarly stuff. They lose members of their squads, whatever, as they engage in battle. I don't know if that's even the same as, you've married someone. It's a tighter bond, I would say, right? You have children with this person. It's just kind of crazy that this is happening. Now, I will say, right, taking pot shots at the president of the United States is worse than taking pot shots at Charlie Kirk, right? I'm not condoning shooting Charlie Kirk at all, of course, but shooting the president of the United States is worse, right? But it's kind of crazy because, there's the meme, right, that people are saying where it's like nothing ever happens or nothing ever changes, right? And then, yesterday and today, we're seeing some very shocked people on the internet saying, "You're telling me that something happened?" That's kind of the vibe. That's kind of the feeling that kind of comes with this, as someone who is observing politics, because it's like, Donald Trump didn't die. Probably doesn't even have a scar in his ear anymore. But Charlie Kirk is a little bit more than that going on right now. This is just a terrible situation, and I wish that there was some sort of indication that, just looking at the political landscape, looking at America as a whole, that things are going to get better anytime soon. But I'm just not seeing that, to be honest. We had the mainstream media going out there spending, a quarter of the time covering the story, talking about how bad Charlie Kirk was. I will say that there was actually some surprisingly and refreshingly wholesome, coverage of Charlie Kirk. And I will say that they didn't really lead with the whole Charlie Kirk bad thing, but they did spend some time on that talking point. And so that was, I don't want to say disappointing, because my expectations and standards for the mainstream media are a little bit low at this point. But even on the right, we had some people, especially online, going out there saying, you don't know what you've started. You're not ready for the backlash, la-di-da-di-da, et cetera, et cetera. That's the proper way to say it, not la-di-da. And so for that too, it's like, well, what exactly are you calling for? What exactly are you saying is going to happen? To say you don't know what you've unleashed, I think, is dangerous talk at this point in time. So the right We shouldn't be saying anything like that at all. Now, one thing I do want to say, right, because I'm sure many of you who are watching this right now may be a little bit disheartened. I will say that it's not all bad. First of all, there are many, many, many normal people who are not on board with these acts of violence, right? So if you look online and you see a lot of people who are supporting this, endorsing this, celebrating, and even people on the right say, you know what you've unleashed, etc., just know that these people are the vast minority of folks, right? They're the vast minority of folks. I think the tricky thing is this question here, which I don't know the answer of, to be honest, is either can we or will we stop that segment of the population from actually being violent? I think a lot of tough conversations need to be had on both sides of the political aisle. I think especially on the left, because their violence has generally gone unchecked for what I've seen, but also on the right. There needs to be a reckoning on both sides where, we've got to get into a huddle and, make sure that we're on the same page about not being violent, not supporting violence, not supporting terrorism against civilians, especially civilians and American citizens. Absolutely unacceptable. The more that I sort of, lots of people like to look at American politics with a binary, right? A lot of times you've seen me, on here talk about politics, and I sort of look at things through the binary of authoritarianism versus libertarianism, right? I want to seek to maximize libertarianism or freedom as much as possible without jeopardizing safety unreasonably, right? That's kind of where I lie on that binary. And so you can make up a binary, I don't know how to say it properly. I'm not really thinking too hard about it right now. You can make a binary about, where certain people lie, where the country stands. You're either on this side or that side. Many people do this with left and right, where essentially it's like, you're either with me or you're against me. If you want boys in the girls' bathrooms, you're over there. And if you don't, you're over there. And that's the end of the discussion, right? But I think that the worst things get in America, I feel like really there's a different way that I think is probably best to think of the binary. Now, if there's ever a civil war, I think it will certainly be broken along these lines. Because if you look at the violent discourse online, the violent speech, that's being said by extreme people on the left. It is being said by extreme people on the right. So there are going to be two sides if it ever comes to this. There is going to be a pro-violent side. There's going to be an anti-violent side. And the right and the left wingers are probably going to go together, even if they're the violent ones. And they're going to be like, hey, we want to tear the system down. Let's start blasting, right? And then they're going to be peaceful people who are just going to be like, I don't want this. But, I also can't stop it because I'm not violent or whatever. I think it's extremely important for you to, speak to people in your political tribe, for lack of a better word. It's not an echo chamber necessarily. I hope you guys are not in echo chambers. Speak to people in your political tribe and be like, hey, we're not going to support violence up in here. Right? We're not going to celebrate violence up in here or acts of terrorism or any of that type of nonsense. Right? This is extremely important. Galvanize the people around you and the people that you know online to be against violence. Because I think that that's the only way, without getting into the spiritual stuff, because of course, there are spiritual things happening in America as well. But, if we're going to take things from a secular perspective, or at least if I'm speaking to the general public here, that's the primary way that things are going to get better, right? Because it was really interesting. I was watching the Pat McAfee show, and he opened up his show with the word about Charlie Kirk, and he was kind of roundabout, I think he's not the most eloquent when it comes to speaking about politics. He doesn't like speaking about politics directly, for the most part. But the words he said, I most certainly appreciated. But one thing I thought was really interesting was when he was speaking, and this was terrible to watch, but when he was speaking, condemning the violence, and saying that he hopes the country can come together, he was speaking as if he didn't even think that the country was going to be able to get along. He was just like, maybe let's stop fighting. Which is kind of disheartening that we have people who are normal dudes, right? I would say that Pat McAfee is probably one of the best examples of a normal dude on both the content creation space and, the mass media space. He's a normal dude, right? Red-blooded American, slightly obese, who loves football, right? Drinks a bunch of beer. That's about as average as it gets when it comes to men in his demographics. But if he is coming on the air with the sentiment of basically, I don't know if you guys are even gonna get along, maybe just stop shooting each other, I think that's a little bit concerning, and that doesn't even take into account the fact that we've seen a bunch of we've seen bomb threats, we've seen threats to various HBCUs. There was some sort of incident at a U.S. Naval Academy shipyard, I believe, somewhere in Maryland. A whole lot of things popping off. Certainly doesn't seem like things are going in the direction that we need them to go. But I think that there are a few things to keep in mind. I think the first thing, of course, I had already mentioned, was that the majority of people are not violent. They don't support the violence. The first thing. But I think the second thing is, I think that even in these scenarios, there are glimmers of hope. Charlie Kirk was a Christian. He was a believer. I don't know why I say was. He still is. Right? Right now, he is in heaven, probably having a better time up there than he ever did down here. And to be honest, if we look at the situation, to die ostensibly a painless death, I hear that, if you're shot in this way, you probably are not going to be feeling much pain. And if you are, you're probably not going to feel it for very long. But to die in this way, relatively painless, doing what you love, surrounded by people who hate you, but also some of your biggest fans, and also to be surrounded by your family that loves you. I don't know. I'm sure maybe there are a few better ways to go out, but as far as ways to die, I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, for him, he was speaking to people, doing his best to change minds, which he loved to do, and then boom, just like that, he's in heaven. For him, I'm gonna be honest, that's not a sad thing for his experience. I'm sure that he's loving being in heaven right now. And I'm not at all happy that he died and got shot or any of that. I'm just, kind of keeping it real, and also, trying to be a little bit optimistic where I can. I mean, it's true. Of course, I'm biased. I'm a Christian, so of course I'm going to say something like this. But I mean, it's true. He's a believer, and he's now with the Lord. I think the part I think that's actually saddest about this is the family that he's left behind. Well, not left behind. I mean, he didn't leave. He was taken. But the family that is left here on this earth, I think, is the saddest part of the story. It's because Charlie Kirk is in heaven, right? That certainly helps with how bummed one can be about it. But his wife has to live with the pain of not being able to spend any more time with her beloved husband for the rest of her mortal life. The children as well, similarly, for their dad, they may not even understand entirely what happened. And this may what I'm trying to search for a word. I'm not remembering exactly what it is. This may irrevocably change. I know, not may. It will irrevocably change his children and how they grow up and who they grow up to be. I especially hope that the children turn out all right, because situations like this, they can really screw you up as a kid, for sure. I think in light of everything that's been going on, like, there's no easy answers really for this whole situation. But I think sort of in honor of Charlie Kirk, what I would like to do is sort of end this segment by reacting to the last question that he took before he got shot and killed while he was there in Utah. This year we have from NTD News. It's called "The Last Question Charlie Kirk Took Before Being Shot Dead on Stage in Utah."
I'm going to give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
This is the last question that he took. It was about gun violence. Debating whether or not it's, trans people who were most, I guess, at risk of causing these types of events to occur. Would have liked to see where he was going with that. I suppose now we'll never know. But yeah, from what I hear, the shooter is still on the loose. I hope they do end up getting the shooter. We're able to figure out why exactly this was done. We're all assuming that this was done for political reasons, but which political reason, which angle? Politics is a lot more complex than a lot of people like to admit. So we don't know the full story and the real reason why he got shot quite yet. There are some rumors floating around. I don't know how accurate those rumors are, so I'm not really going to waste time speaking about them, especially when I don't stream super often anymore. But yeah, certainly pray for Charlie Kirk's family, and pray for all of his friends. He had a lot of friends. It kind of happens when you're famous and you're not problematic. You get a lot of friends. So pray for his friends. He's got a lot of them out there. He's got a lot of content creator friends, a lot of politician friends, and also pray for the nation that somehow we decide to heal instead of lash out, as we've chosen so often to do. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can say for that. All right, I am gonna read the chat here because there were a bunch of chat messages I did not read. It says, by the way, any chance do you know what the episcopal thank you for spelling this wrong, so I have a reason to laugh on the stream today. Any chance do you know what the Episcopalistic Church is? My mom's making me join. Okay, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. I think you're talking about either the Apostolic Church. I don't even know if those are still around. Right? Actually, no, it's actually literally not around still. I think it's probably the Episcopal Church. The Episcopal Church. I would say right now the Episcopalian denomination is somewhat sus. Right. From what little I see of the Episcopalians, they are far too interested and excited about following the theological dictates of secular progressivism than they are the Word of God, which is unfortunate. But I do need to give the caveat that generally especially when it comes to the church, it's the bad news that travels fast, right? So there could be a billion good Episcopal churches, and the only ones I've been hearing are like the progressive ones with female pastors, right? I could be off the mark here. I could have also been given a bad impression of what the Episcopalian denomination is. What I would say is look up what Episcopalians stand for and believe, and I think you'll be ready. Now, if your parent, I will say this, you're a minor, you're a child, it's not up to you what church you go to. So, just go to the church, right? Just go to the church. I am not super familiar with all of like the down and dirty details of the Episcopalian theology. I will say that my theology is I am Reformed Baptist, but culturally I don't really fit or vibe with like the Reform, all of everything that the Reformed camp of Christian theology, with that box that it fits into. They're kind of prim and proper and kind of stiff and mirthless, unfortunately. But I got the theology down pat, so I'm on board with it. But yeah, so if you want to maybe compare what I believe to what the Episcopalians believe, look up Reformed Baptist, or look up the Baptist denomination, then look up what it means to be Reformed, then look up the Episcopalian denomination, and then you'll kind of get an idea of, if you believe generally what I believe when it comes to Scripture, compare that to what the Episcopalian denomination is, then read the scriptures yourself that speak on those different topics, and then sort of figure out, okay, I can kind of rock with this and I'm coolin'. Or you can be like, I disagree with this, but of course I'm still going to be dragged along by my parents to go to this church. So yeah, definitely recommend looking into the denomination. Also look into the church's statement of faith. Almost all churches have statements of faith on their website. You may have to scroll all the way down to go to the sitemap or the footer to find it, but almost all churches have a statement of faith. That's the formal Christianese term for it. Usually nowadays those pages will say what we believe or our beliefs or who we are, especially if they're not a denomination, they'll say who we are. So look that up as well. If you feel so inclined. Also, on my Discord server, we have an entire religion channel that unfortunately goes unused. So if you hear something during the sermon and you think it's interesting or you think it's sus, throw it in there. I would love to hear what your church is preaching. It'd be very interesting to kind of hear, the thoughts of where you're getting led. So, but great question, by the way. I do appreciate this one. Brother No said it's the Democrats just killing Republican voices. I mean, there have been a few cases of like maybe one or two, I think, of MAGA Republicans committing acts of violence. I think that there was actually one or two cases of MAGA Republicans actually planning violence and they got thwarted. It's not just Democrats, but I will say it's mostly Democrats. I know people are going to trot out stats, probably be like, ooh, the majority of violence is right-wing violence. There are problems with how those acts of violence are being categorized, which we may get to later. But, think back the last 5 to 10 political figures who got killed or faced assassination attempts or assaults. Were they Republicans or were they Democrats? Right? And were their perpetrators Republicans or were they Democrats? Look that up and then get back to me within 7 business days. Berliner says, also, I think there's no shot Democrats win the next election because of this assassination. We'll have to see. Honestly, at this point, I am not really being like, oh, I wonder how this is going to affect the next election. Like, Can we get through this weekend? Okay, I've got college football to watch. All right, I've got a flag football game to play. I've got Red Zone waiting for me on Sunday. Okay, like I want to get through this weekend. I'm not really thinking about the upcoming elections right now. We got special elections happening all across the country. We've got local elections happening all over the country. Of course, this next election cycle is going to largely affect the shape of the 2028 election cycle, but I'm not interested in that right now. I'm not really thinking about that because our country has to survive that long. Okay? We have to survive that long. So I'm not going to be thinking about the election right now. Brayleno says, can imagine his kids 4 and 6. Wow, I thought that one of his kids was 3. Could be wrong. Berlino said, when I was 6 and my dog died, that was the worst 4-day depression I had probably, and my dad would be even worse. Yeah, it's horrifying. It's crazy. Berlino says, I'm gonna go play backgammon with my pop. I'll be back in an hour. If you end stream, I'll watch the VOD. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate you watching the VODs as well. I was wondering if people watch those or not. I like having them up, but I just didn't know if people watch them. I have never played backgammon. I think I've maybe seen a little bit of gameplay of it, and I was like, this looks confusing and complicated, so I quit, or I didn't even try playing the game. So if you know how to play a game, props to you. You're kind of young. Let's see. I think Charlie Kirk. I think he led I think Charlie Kirk left behind a wonderful legacy of telling students to speak their mind, stand up for what they believe in, and above all, be respectful of each other, and be peaceful. And when it comes to political discussions and conversations and disagreements, keep it at words. Keep it at words, have good relationships with those around you, regardless of their politics. And, try to, base your stances on facts, logic, reason, science, all that stuff. And then, share your opinion, go your separate ways, and then just keep it moving, keep it rolling. And I really appreciate what he did with TPUSA. Cultivating safe spaces for right-wingers to speak their mind on campuses that are largely left-wing. And I think I hope this summarizes his legacy well. I think that Charlie Kirk is kind of a hard person to sort of put into a 1 or 2 minute video, but Brute America gave it a shot, so I figured I would react to it. This is a compilation of Charlie Kirk 9 arguments that he has made throughout the course of his career in political activism. This is from Brute America.
We actually need looser gun laws because I think that
gun laws.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially in states like Chicago and Illinois, where it's very basic Second Amendment rights. Those of us.
I agree. He was shot in a gun-free zone.
That believe in the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. We fully acknowledge that when you have liberty, that you're going to have sometimes undesirable outcomes. We as enthusiasts for the Second Amendment acknowledge that in a free society, people are going to do bad things and dumb things, but there is a price to liberty. Isn't it?
Very true. Very true. Actually, I made a video kind of about this. Let me see if I can find this video, because it did a really good job of summarizing my position here. It's an older one. It's a deep cut. You might not even remember it if you're watching this stream live. You might not remember it. But here, hold on. Let me see if I can find it. It's actually one of my favorite clips ever. It was about freedom. Oh man, I don't know. Is it this clip right here?
ISM says Communist China can steal your data if you download TikTok. That's true.
Okay, yes. Okay, yeah. So it's this clip right here is Google's worse than TikTok here.
ISM says Communist China can steal.
Well, hold on. I think this is it, right? Let me look up the transcript just to make sure. Actually, no, this is not it. Hold on, let me see if I can find this clip. I know for a fact that it's on here somewhere. I know also that it was one of these videos because it was during these streams that I had. Let me see. Well, anyways, I guess I can restate my point, although I'm pretty shocked that it's not on here. It really should be one of these videos. But my position was essentially, if you had to pick between fighting, another, if you had to pick between fighting, an American citizen and fighting the government, you want to be able to choose, the citizen every time. And what I mean by that is, if an American screws up, right, does something bad. So, for example, let's say that an American, let's say an American is going on a rampage, running around, killing a bunch of people. You want to be able to go and put that person down, right? Versus if the state says, okay, we're going to go ahead and massacre a whole lot of people, it's a lot harder to fight that person, right? So there's always going to be liberty. The question is, who's going to have that liberty? Is it going to be the American citizen, or is it going to be the government? That's the question. And, people are not perfect, right? We live in a fallen world. So mistakes are going to happen either way. If you give the government too much power, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to affect a lot of people. Give people too much freedom, they're going to make mistakes. Is it going to be the American citizen? Oh, I did not mean to click that. They're going to make mistakes. They're not going to affect as many people, but they are going to make mistakes. So I agree, the scale, you really want it to be the citizens to be making the mistakes, not the federal government. Because once the federal government's been making those mistakes, it's almost impossible to revert it. You can try, but no promises.
To liberty. Isn't it racist then to penalize white people to come into college or to get jobs based on the color of their skin? Well, no. Wouldn't that be racist? So you're arguing for a very racist policy, which is that we should actively discriminate against people based on the color of their skin, which is affirmative action in DEI in practice.
Affirmative action in DEI is systemic racism.
Very specifically about democracy, which is not an American value. It never has been and never should be. What's happening at the Democratic Party is this very sinister combination. It never democracy, which is specifically about democracy, which is not an American value. It never has been and never should be.
Very interesting take. I would like to see the context surrounding that. I do think that some form of democracy, it lies at the bedrock of what it means to be American. I think if you stopped having elections, I don't think it'd be America anymore. I mean, it may technically be America. It may nominally be America, but it wouldn't spiritually be America. It wouldn't feel like it's America still.
What's happening at the Democratic Party is this very sinister combination. It's a party of censorship. It's a party of war, a party of open borders that is against.
To be fair, the Republican Party is a party of war as well. Bro, you should have seen Lindsey Graham say that all the Gazans should be massacred and genocided. And this was day one of the war, right? We're not talking about, yesterday somebody in the Israeli cabinet said we should take over Gaza. Like, no. We're talking about like day one after October 7th. He was saying that, flatten the place was literally his word. Literally his words. So Republicans are they can be warmongery too.
actual traditional liberal values. Men are much better at macro topics, right? Trying to build a building, put a skyscraper up, trying to talk geopolitics. When you go and you see 5 women eating lunch, they're probably talking about conversations they had, relationships, friendships. Men, they're talking about politics, sports, or the stock market. This is feminine.
I don't know how true that is. I would need to see more evidence. Interesting though.
You as women should want to be provided for. In fact, you should have an expectation that you as a woman are so important and so critical and so necessary and beautiful that it shouldn't even be a question. The male mind is wired different than the female mind. Men will never be as good at counseling or psychology sessions as women. Men will never be good at nursing or elementary school education as women. We have certain giftings as our brain is wired a certain way.
Probably
I think it's
true,
worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights.
It's very true. I completely agree with that as well. You know, I agree with Charlie Kirk on a lot of things. I disagree with him on some things, though. And I disagree with the way that he speaks at times. I think that I understand what he was going for in a lot of his engagements, cracking jokes and things. It's very humanizing, especially in a political conversation. Not everyone does that. It's a lot harder to sort of be demonized. He says, do you ignore the chat too? Funny. I will get to you. Lady Veen, I will get to you. It's very humanizing to crack jokes. It's very humanizing to be someone with a sense of humor. But I do think that he went a little aggro sometimes, and he kind of like would mock some of the people who came up there. Now, if someone comes up to him loaded for bear, then it's fine to shoot back with similar fire. But he was in some of the situations he was sort of being aggro. I heard that he had mellowed out a little bit towards the end there. I was not following him super closely, so I don't know. But I mean, it really is a shame that this guy got killed because, first of all, we don't know how the radical people on the right are going to respond, right? We don't know if the keyboard warriors are they're actually going to try to start some sort of crazy revolution. But also, I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing a movement of a whole lot of people running around sort of imitating what he did, right? Doing things very similarly or just speaking their mind online, trying to fill the hole in the vacuum that Charlie Kirk has left. All right, we have Lady Veen here in the chat, who I believe is new. I don't think I've seen you in the chat before. What's up, Lady Veen? Thanks for popping up here in the chat. It says, is this the first time you're watching his stuff? No, this is not. Well, no, it's not, but I don't really watch Charlie Kirk very often, to be honest. I thought that while he wasn't bad, there were some people who were making better arguments than him, right? My primary political commentator of choice is Tim Pool, right? Not Charlie Kirk. Also, Al Mohler. Love Al Mohler. I plan on reacting to his reaction to this whole situation here in a bit. But, I think that, earlier in his career, he was pretty good, right? But I will say that later on in his career, I think over the past 2 years, I've noticed here and there, as I've seen clips of him on Instagram, I was like, well, what he's saying there, that's like outdated data, right? And you could certainly make a counter argument, but, he was citing data at some points that had been debunked. And I was like, the only reason he's getting away with it in this exchange is because he's talking to a kid who doesn't know any better, right? Charlie Kirk's information might be old, but he's still more informed than the person he's speaking to. So at the time of his death, I viewed him sort of as subpar, but I also understood, right? Because he's very busy man, taking a whole lot of opportunities with interviews on various shows. He had his own show. He had his own program. He had he did his prove me wrong thing, right? He did the tours. He did speaking engagements. He held rallies. Like, The man was busy, so I could forgive him for not studying up on political studies and facts for a year or two, even though it's technically his job. Like, I understand you only have so much bandwidth to do so many things in so little time. Lady Veen said, sorry, a lot of creators have been ignoring the chat. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's a lot easier to read the chat when you're a small creator like me and nobody watches your stuff. I'm sure there are lots of content creators who would love to read your chats if they could. But the bigger ones that you've heard of, they probably get so many chats they might not even see your message. Lady Bean says there is a hashtag trending, we are Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I'm seeing that. I'm also seeing people online saying you just created a million Charlie Kirks today, or millions of Charlie Kirks today, which is cool. Lady Bean says, first time here. I don't have any to talk about this in Canadian. Lady Bean, are you Canadian? It's ridiculous. I'll say this, and there's no way that this is helping the state of American political discourse, by the way. I'm noticing that whenever I upload clips on 9UB Highlights every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon. I upload clips. It basically takes my streams. It turns my streams into videos, and they're pretty digestible. So if you want to see me more frequently or regularly than when I stream, go to the 9UB Highlights channel, subscribe, and you'll get, not daily doses, but every other week daily doses, essentially. And I notice that when I criticize Donald Trump, the algorithm scoops that up and just runs with it. But when I praise Donald Trump, I get little to no views, or I get, very negative reception. Usually it's little to no views. But as soon as I criticize Donald Trump, Nanubi's talking about something interesting here. Let's boost that. So I feel like maybe it's because it's like, if you're conservative, I'll only show you to the Canadians. And if you're liberal, then I'll show you to all the Americans. But real talk, that's kind of weird, YouTube. What's up with that? You're trying to prop up anti-Trump sentiment, whip people into the frenzy. I know that it's not a matter of, conservative content on YouTube doing poorly and left-wing content on YouTube doing well. That's certainly not it. Part of me wonders if a lot of the people who are spewing really vile, really hateful rhetoric against the right online are doing so specifically because they've been ideologically captured by these algorithms, which are incentivizing them to speak in extremely harsh and negative terms against right-wingers. It would make sense, because if I was in this to make money, like if I was here trying to get a career out of doing this, being like, I want to make this my job, blah, 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 right? And I saw that as soon as I started, criticizing Donald Trump, I was going from 13 views to 300 views. I would use that recipe and I would run with it. I would criticize Donald Trump till the cows came home. If I was here to be a grifter, just trying to make a quick buck, that's what I would do. And to be honest, content creation is a career for a lot of people. So, maybe social media is playing an active role in some of the radicalization that we're seeing online, right? I mean, we all know that social media algorithms are not neutral, right? It took Elon Musk buying Twitter and turning it into X to keep it from being a left-wing cesspool. So that's extremely unfortunate. It's extremely unfortunate. It's been something that I've been mulling in my mind over the past month or two. I'm in Chalipi's Discord. He's one of my favorite video essayists, and he was saying something similar, but not about politics at all, because he's not extremely political. But it's because he talks about content creators. He talks about internet drama, and he was like, in the Discord server, he was like, man, this is kind of crazy. I don't like dunking on this particular content creator, but the algorithm is really telling me to dunk on this content creator. I made 3 videos about him because I was interested in what was going on, But now I made a video about another person. I'm also passionate about this drama that's happening, and the views go down. But then I go back to making a video about that other person, and the views go back up. And it kind of sucks because I think that personally this guy's hurting and has these personal issues and la la la. It's like, we shouldn't be at a point where the content platforms are telling the content creators to spew hateful rhetoric and engage in pylons, especially on people who are already unpopular or deeply hated by certain segments of the population. It's really bad. It's really bad. And I don't know if anyone's going to go up to YouTube and being like, hey, why are you driving content creators to, make this type of content that is divisive or contributes to anger in certain communities? But I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. I'm going to make a video out of this, and literally no one's going to watch it because I'm not blaming Donald Trump for anything. That's the crazy thing, which is absolutely crazy. So this video is not going to start a conversation, but it's really bad. I think that we underestimate how much YouTube, the algorithms themselves, drive political conversations. Lady V says, I'm not a huge fan of Trump. I vote conservative, but I'm socially liberal, or was. It's really hard to be open-minded these days. Yeah, and that's tricky. That's what I was saying earlier in the stream, that politics is pretty complex, right? It's not simple. You can't just fit everything inside of binaries. You can try, you can split people apart, but when it comes to actually glom the people together, there are all these different factions all over the place. Right, I myself, I think I sort of, kind of lean, because I would call myself center right. I would say, I think colloquially, I'm a conservative. I am disillusioned by many conservatives today. Right, they've run around preaching small government conservatism and fiscal responsibility while practicing big government. Not conservatism, and they've been practicing big government, not conservatism, and fiscal irresponsibility. I mean, looking at you, Donald Trump, running around ballooning the deficits. But still, there are many social issues and things that, especially as a Christian, I am on board with the right on, right? So I'm never going to be a leftist. Right? I mean, I just don't think it's possible with my understanding of Scripture for me to be a leftist. All right, and Lady Bean said Charlie Kirk was considered center right. I don't know. I don't know if I'd call him center right. I'd say he wasn't far right, but I think that he's reasonable, to be sure, but I don't think that being reasonable and on the right means you're center right. I don't know. I don't know if I'd say he's center right. But then again, I don't know. I see, this is where I'm a bit at a disadvantage for not following Charlie Kirk super closely. I don't know what his extreme positions would be, or anything that I wouldn't necessarily look at that and be like, oh, that's radical, or not radical, but that's certainly not centrist. So I don't know. And lastly, before I react to the next video, Lady Veen says, I don't blame you for playing the algorithm 100%. I'm not playing the algorithm at all. I'm not playing the algorithm. I make and release content that I want to make. So, you guys, I don't know if you guys see this because YouTube hides the likes and dislikes, but the vast majority of my videos that do get likes and dislikes get the majority dislikes, actually. It's only until recently that I was bashing Donald Trump for his handling of the Epstein files and various things that I was starting to actually get a lot of positive receptions to a lot of things I was saying. But even for videos that don't get a lot of views, I will often get, 1 or 2 dislikes and a dismissive or negative comment. So I'm not trying to placate an internet audience. I'm just on here being myself, in talking about things that I'm interested in and passionate about. I'm a big fan of politics, so I spend a lot of time talking about politics. I talk about other things occasionally, but it's mostly politics around here and maybe internet drama from time to time. Alrighty. I am going to react to this here. Now, I'm kind of going through my my podcast here with this one, because this is one of my favorite podcasts. I listen to this one pretty much every day. Been a little bit behind on my podcast, so try to listen to my podcasts in order. But this is Al Mohler. He is a Christian political commentator, probably the best Christian nationalist, if you want to call him a Christian nationalist. I would call him a Christian nationalist. I'm not a fan of Christian nationalism, but I think if you're going to be a Christian nationalist like Albert Mohler. He's extremely reasonable. I highly recommend you go to him for political coverage, or just Christian commentary on things that are happening in the world. He's really good with that. I recently learned that he has a video version of his podcast. I never actually watched it before. And I think now is as good a time as any to react to an episode of his. I'm going to be reacting to his segment called A Day That Will Go Down in Infamy. This is from... Actually, I'm not sure... Let me see. Let's see if this is going to be a coverage of the Charlie Kirk situation. I want to react to what he has to say about the Charlie Kirk situation. I'm hoping he leads with Charlie Kirk.
It's Thursday, September 11, 2025. I'm Albert Mohler, and this is The Briefing, a daily analysis of news and events from a Christian worldview. In every generation, there are historic moments that are never forgotten. And when you look at generation by generation in the United States, of course, this goes back even to the Battle of Bunker Hill. You can go down the list. And then, of course, at one point, it was Remember the Alamo. At another point, it was Remember Pearl Harbor. And then in the 1960s, when I was a boy, it was multiple assassinations, first of John F. Kennedy, the President of the United States, and then Martin Luther King Jr., and then Robert F. Kennedy, the President's brother, the very night he won the California Democratic primary. Of course, when these things happen, the immediate question is, what does this mean? What kind of country are we? What does this say about who we are? How does this fit into our American identity? What does this say about American culture? And of course, today is September the 11th, reminding us that today, this very day, is the 24th anniversary of the attacks by Al-Qaeda, the terrorist attacks in New York City and Washington, D.C. More about that in just a moment, but the point I want to make now is that the generation of those living at the time, and in particular those who were young at the time, it is a searing memory they will never get over, certainly never forget. It becomes a formative experience. And then yesterday in Utah, another generational shaping event, an event that raises basic questions about American culture and who we are. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, conservative activist, organizer, spokesman, debater. He was on an American college campus in this case.
He is an outspoken Christian believer as well. I'm surprised that he didn't lead with that, being that he's a Christian as well.
Organizer, spokesman, debater. He was on an American college campus, in this case, the campus of Utah Valley University. And he was doing what he loved to do and what he did so well. He was debating with students. He was openly engaging with students. He was sitting under a tent that said, "Prove me wrong." And he was the kind of convictional conservative who had an enormous gift and a lot of courage to go out before a very interesting crowd, a massive crowd of college students, and basically to take all comers. And as he often said, he wanted to give preference to those who disagreed with him. That's a form of engagement that is all too rare in our society. And frankly, it's a form of conservative confidence that was sadly lacking, especially when it came to young adults for a long time in the United States. Charlie Kirk formed Turning Point USA. He co-founded it when he was 18 years old. And when he was assassinated yesterday, he was only 31 years old. He had a very short life, but he had a massive impact. But let's remind ourselves of where we were yesterday when the news came that Charlie Kirk had been shot. And then all too suddenly the word came that he indeed had been murdered. And that's the right word. A part of conservative conviction, a part of our biblical worldview is that we must call things what they are. And so when we're looking at this savage attack, a shot by someone who was evidently able to use a weapon with the skill of a sniper from a distance estimated by law enforcement of something like 200 yards and perhaps more. You had one shot that became a fatal shot into the neck of Charlie Kirk, right in front of that huge crowd of college students, right on video. And of course, it is just one of those moments. Almost immediately, there was the recognition that this must assuredly be a fatal shot. And thus the shock began to set in the entire nation. And then the word came confirming his death. And then the reminder.
This is truly, I don't know if anyone said this. It may sound a little cliche for me to say, but I do think that this is a shot that this is going to be one of those shots that's going to be heard around the world. There were considerations of having a moment of silence in the European Parliament over this situation. I'm quite sure that there are probably people mourning Charlie Kirk's death internationally in other countries as well. This is certainly a shot that was heard across the country, which I will also be getting to later. But yeah, the impact of this, I don't think can be understated. I think that this is most certainly one of those shots that have been that's fired that not only is louder than its resonant sound, but also just rings out and echoes in the following days and weeks, if not months and years to come.
Of the fact that this was a very young man with a young wife and two very young children. The wife now a widow, the children now fatherless. Of course, this context is political. It's a lot more than political, but it's never less than political, and no one would have understood that better than Charlie Kirk. He waded into political waters. He did so as a convictional conservative. And there's an interesting point to be made here, because Charlie Kirk, as an 18-year-old, basically held already to most of the political principles that he held the day he was killed. In other words, there's a continuity there. Now, there is discontinuity I'll speak about in just a moment, and it's a blessed discontinuity. But the continuity is there, and it's one I recognize.
I wonder what that discontinuity is. I think that knowing how he speaks, he's basically saying a contradiction.
Because it also marks my own life and my perception of myself. I began as a very young conservative political activist working in political campaigns, including the campaign of Ronald Reagan in 1976. I understand what it is as a very young man to be filled with political convictions and political passions that are about more than politics, but not less than politics. Charlie Kirk had an amazing intuition about politics. He also had an amazing organizational ability. And as I say, he was a convictional conservative. Now, he redefined conservative in some sense, part of it because of the fact he was so young, and he brought a certain disequilibrium to the political equation as a matter of strategy. And of course, no one understood that better than Donald J. Trump, President of the United States then and now, and President Trump as a candidate in 2024 entrusted enormous responsibility to Charlie Kirk and to his army of young activists, even in terms of some of the grassroots work for which they were, in one sense, unprepared. He had confidence in them, and as we now know, they delivered. Now, as I say, Charlie Kirk developed his core conservative convictions very early. But I just want to remind you that there are basically two and only two variants of conservatism. And this is something we'll discuss in greater detail on another more appropriate day. But the two, and I would argue only two, real variants of conservative thought are a secular conservatism and a Christian conservatism. Or I'll say a theistic conservatism that would include those who understand that, for instance, our rights are given to us by God. That the
I don't know if I agree with that. Because you'll see anti-Semitic conservatives, right-wingers. I'm talking, and by the way, I'm not the type of person who's gonna run around saying all right-wingers are fascists, right? And all right-wingers are Nazis. What I'm talking about is like Nick Fuentes, Myron Gaines. I guess, probably even put guess you could put Milo Yiannopoulos in there as well, though I'm not sure how serious he is when he's being racist. He is, in part, at least, a comedian, to be fair. But, those people who are extremely anti-Semitic, who also talk about God and how great Christianity is or whatever, I don't think that we would lump them in and say, oh, you're part of the Christian conservative camp, right? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Conservative principles come out of the existence of God and his revelation to us. It's the secular conservatism that is the only real conservative alternative, and in one sense you're talking about conservative Christianity or Christian conservatism versus something like Nietzsche. It is the right or the conservatism of power. And an interesting aspect of all this is that when I met Charlie Kirk years ago, and we were backstage at a conservative conference at which both of us were speaking. At that time, Charlie Kirk, as a very young conservative, was really not a Christian conservative in terms of his identity. As a matter of fact, he saw Christian conservatives as something of a limiting force that other conservatives would have to overcome. He didn't identify with Christianity personally, and quite honestly, he spoke of, if not denying conservative Christian influence in political conservatism. At least.
Wait, so he was not a believer, or he did not support, and using Christianity to drive your conservative politics and ideals?
At least he wanted to limit it, and he saw that as a limiting factor in terms of conservative victory. And honestly, he wasn't too impressed with a conservative Christian leader. I think the Christian part was the drawback. But the Charlie Kirk who emerged in just a few years was a Charlie Kirk who openly identified with Christianity and personally identified with his own personal Christian faith. As a self-identified Christian, he began to understand that Christianity is actually the truth claim that is the very basis of the American constitutional order. And he began to see Christian virtues, Christian convictions as central to any kind of viable conservatism. And then it was also demonstrated in his personal life by the fact that he married a beautiful wife, Erica, and together they had 2 young children. And I will tell you, and this is just deeply biblical, and you know it, nothing makes a man more mature. And this is right out of...
I want to say something that's kind of interesting. This just came to mind when he brought up Charlie Kirk's children. Maybe this is a good indication of where we're at as a country, that I've seen online people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. I've seen people asking for even more blood. I've seen extremely insensitive memes. But beyond all that, still even looking at those very people who've been saying all that stuff, I've yet to see one person say, I'm really glad that Charlie Kirk's kids are messed up, or Charlie Kirk's wife deserves to be a widow. I've never seen a single person online say that. Maybe that's a good sign. Maybe that shows that there's at least a modicum of humanity amongst even the most radical left-wingers, that at least they don't want the close relatives of a right-winger to be killed. But even still, man, I mean, it is vile to be celebrating the death of this human being.
Man, more mature, and this is right out of creation order and God's plan in Genesis, than becoming a husband and a father, and thus this expands the tragedy of what happened yesterday, but it also helps to explain the trajectory of Charlie Kirk's life. Now, I think there are a lot of people who would look at Charlie Kirk and say, well, he was a professional provocateur, and of course he was that. He enjoyed that, but he was
a bit of a troll, I would say.
More than a provocateur, he wasn't a poser. That is to say, he wasn't conveniently conservative. He was pretty much conservative come high water or low water. and when it was popular or unpopular. But he was a provocateur, and frankly, he played a different role than many of us would play. But it was a very effective role, and it was particularly effective in reaching young people, high school and college students, young adults in particular, and he had a certain genius for reaching conservative young men. And I want to make very clear that is a really important gift, and he deployed that. And you see this in the fact that in the immediate aftermath of the news of the shooting there on that university campus in Utah, you had a flood of young men who all of a sudden swarmed around the story. Charlie Kirk was something of a hero to them. Certainly, if not a hero, he was a crucial influencer when it came to their understanding of reality, politics, and their personal responsibility. You know, the role of a provocateur is sometimes an awkward one. And, you know, if you are a provocateur, you will have enemies. And, of course, I will argue that any man or woman of conviction will eventually have enemies. But it is simply one of those days that will now go down in American tragedy, that it was an assassin who took out Charlie Kirk yesterday with that one round of ammunition. And there's so many questions. There's so many questions about this. There is an absolute demand for justice that comes out of this. And that demand for justice is right and it's righteous. But then, as I argue in an article published this morning at World Opinions, the blood of Abel cries out, as the Lord said to Cain. It cries out from the ground. And that is true whenever violence like this is brought against a human being made in God's image. And of course, there will be political controversy swirling around this, and there will be investigations. And yesterday, it turns out that at least 2 men were arrested as potential suspects, identified legally as persons of interest. But it is not at this point clear. There are more questions than there are answers when it comes to this assassination. Utah Republican Governor Spencer Cox, in a statement made, and remember this happened in his state.
I'm not going to react to this because this, you know, we're getting a little long on the tooth if we're reacting to that whole segment. But I mean, it was good to hear what Al Mohler had to say. Extremely reasonable content creator, one of my favorite Christian conservative political influencers, and I think that sort of did serve as a beautiful eulogy. You know, I think it did a really good job of encapsulating Charlie Kirk, sort of his life and his work. I do think that it missed how much of his faith was ingrained in his content creation. I know that he spoke briefly about that, but you know how often he spoke of Christ and how he was pushing the gospel in his public events. I think should not be overlooked at all. So you know, a shame that he died, especially in this way. But you know, a really good segment from Al Mohler there. Lady Veen in the chat said, "I will be honest with you. I've been crying because of this. It rocked me to the core. I saw the video of him dying. It's a hard thing to move on from." It's very true. Very true. It's a you know, man, we should not be seeing people dying in this way. It's extremely visceral. You know, people shouldn't be dying like this, and we shouldn't be seeing people dying this way. You know, life is life. People die in crazy ways. Crazy things happen, but still, it doesn't excuse at all what happened. It doesn't justify it or make it any easier to observe or witness. Lady Veen says there was one woman who said it's better for his kids he's dead. It was on Facebook. Oh, I have not seen that. I'm not on Facebook. I use Instagram a bit. One thing I find really interesting is, you know, on Instagram, as soon as he died, I've been seeing nothing but Charlie Kirk videos. And these are not like new videos. These are old videos on Charlie Kirk's page that are just like blowing up the feed. Like, if your intention was to silence the voice of Charlie Kirk, you have miserably failed, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Lady Veen says it's the fact he was killed for his opinions. Exactly. One thing I wanted to react to is I guess the normal person response to the death of Charlie Kirk, which I'm gonna use Pat McAfee as my normal person avatar here, right? The slightly overweight, white middle-aged male who spends 95% of his waking moments thinking about football while drinking beer. Being a little bit facetious here, but Pat McAfee is, I think, a really good example of just like a normal American. And I think this is probably going to do a really good job of encapsulating the average American reaction to this news of what took place. Oh, hold on. I muted the tab. My bad on that. Here, let me unmute the tab. I love the intro, by the way, which is why I'm including it. Intro is very fun.
The following program is a collection of stooges talking about happenings in the sports world. It is meant to be comedic informative. The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect the beliefs of their peers, their boss, or ESPN. There may be some cuss words because that's how humans in the real world talk.
What voice is he doing?
Young,
This is hilarious.
please seek permission before watching any further.
Hey, why? Let's go.
This show stinks, and the fact that you listen, we are very, very thankful for it.
McAfee on the line with a gorgeous
That was kind of his crazy shot.
Tackler for the Green Bay Packers.
You pink. Damn it!
Be a friend, tell a friend something nice.
This is a
Change
legendary
their
intro,
life.
by the way. I do love this intro. It's obviously the music, but it's fantastic. The chants are cool too.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to our humble abode, the Thunderdome, on this NFL Week 2 kickoff Thursday, September 11th, 2025. This program begins now.
Football
Is happening on this September 11th, 2025, and I am an old man, and I happen to be at an age of, memory and remembering whatever September 11th, 2001 took place 24 years ago. I was in high school, and obviously it was a devastating day. It was a crazy day. It changed this world mightily, not just here, but obviously around the globe as a whole. And what I remember about that, and we will never forget all the lives that were lost and all the badasses that ran towards fire and buildings collapsing, and the heroes that stepped up amongst us in the middle of the crazed, terrible chaos that was taking place in our biggest city. And then I'm from Pittsburgh. There was a plane that went down outside of our city, and then obviously the Pentagon had a plane hit it as well, and it was just a bunch of news, and it was crazy. I don't think any of us fully understood what was happening, but I do remember on September 12th, 2001, it felt like our entire country, no matter what you believed, no matter where you were from, we were all together as one. We're unified more than I think I've ever witnessed in my entire 38 years of existing. And I think that is something that a lot of people that were able to live through it, who believe in the good of people instead of the bad of people, we hope that we'll be able to get to that level of unification in our society at some point yet again. It's almost like we're chasing that in hopes that we can be I don't want to say everybody has to get along and everybody has to agree, but at least we can move forward without hating each other, which is seemingly what social media...
I talked about this early in the stream. It's kind of a shame that he doesn't think that America can just get along. Isn't it? Like, whenever I hear like acts of violence or whatever, even I will say this. It's like, but generally the reaction will be, oh man, can't we just get along? Can't we just get to a place where we are coexisting happily and peacefully with one another, holding each other's hands while jogging in the plains, like Care Bears. That is the utopia that we picture, right? When we're saying like, what's the best that things could possibly look like on Earth. And I am a little humorous, but I'm being a little bit serious as well. Like, that is kind of what we want to see as Americans, I would hope, or at least the majority of normal Americans want, is for there to be peace, unity, and for people to get along. And it's a shame that he feels like we can't even get along. I think it sort of does show where our country is at right now, because this is, remember, I'm using him as my normal person avatar here, right? Using him an example of what a normal person is going to be responding to this with.
And everybody has to agree, but at least we can move forward without hating each other, which is seemingly what social media has done to us in a way that I don't know if anybody could have predicted whenever we thought that the entire world should be connected in the palm of their hands. Now, it feels like there's a lot of people that get satisfaction as being known as the most something, the most this, the most that. And whenever people try to compete on who's the meanest to the other side of the aisle, I think you're going to inevitably run into some chaos happening in our world. And I am not a politics person. I've been dropped into the political world a couple different times by my own mistakes, but also because of my own opinions. And it's a blender over there. And to be a person that wants to go in and stand on your beliefs and try to change the world and have the courage to do so, and also welcome and embrace debate in that world with how much anger there is, I think is a pretty admirable trait to have. So,
I mean, I would say that the Charlie Kirk is an American hero for specifically making the work that he has done to make conservatives feel more comfortable at colleges and universities across the country. Like, look, we all know that college attendance is down across the board right now, but I think that colleges would be in an even worse position without Charlie Kirk, because I think you would have a lot of conservatives, and that means especially a lot of Christians, just refusing to go to college because the allure of, oh, you can just, go to the trades, or you can skip college or whatever, is going to be that much sweeter when you know that you're going to a college and there's going to be a hostile environment. So, I think that Charlie Kirk has done America a great service with the work that he's done throughout his life.
Although I did not know Charlie Kirk, I certainly saw his clips from afar. I thought he was a crazy person for embracing and welcoming the interactions that he wanted on the topics that he believed so mightily in. But the funny thing is, like, I didn't follow Charlie Kirk super closely in recent years, but in the wake of his death, I'm seeing lots of clips of people actually coming to Charlie Kirk with that sentiment, being like, man, aren't you afraid you're going to get attacked? This girl tried to steal your hat this one time. Have you been afraid that someone might try to steal your life? And Charlie Kirk was like, no, I'm standing on business. And that is, like Pat McAfee is saying, you're extremely admirable. I also believe that he believed in what he was doing was making the world better. And I think the people that are willing to hear the other side and maybe extend a hand and maybe change their own opinion are the people that we should be modeling ourselves after. I am not always right. I am a doofus. I am an idiot that talks about sports, but I love hearing other people's ideas on things. Now, I am not in the politics world, and I know there's much more serious things out there, but in the sports lane that I live in, it is nice to hear the other side. So when I learned of Charlie Kirk on the internet, and once again, I did not meet him, I did not know him personally, I thought it was admirable to hear somebody who was so firm in their own beliefs but wanted to hear why other people were against him. So yesterday, whenever we see a public execution of this man happen in all of our palms of our hands in real time, you can't help but wonder, damn, first of all, he has a family, he has kids, but also, are we a society that's really going to become that? Is that who we are? Is that what we're going to be, just strictly because we think that we're better than the other side? It's become a wild time, I think, in our existence, and hopefully yesterday was a pivotal moment for us on this September 11th, 2025, to maybe have a September 12th, 2001 moment. So that's my thoughts, positive vibes, prayers to his family and friends that have been there, but also I hope to our entire society, like, yo, you can disagree with people. You can disagree with people, and you don't have to hate them or have disdain for them forever. Everybody has different backgrounds. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Somebody that grew up in Miami or South Florida is going to have different views on shit, I would assume. Somebody that grew up in Compton, California, who I've had a chance and opportunity to hang around and get to know people, probably have a little bit of a different view on things than maybe people that grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, we're never going to all agree, but we all have to exist. And we might as well try to shake the hand and hear from the other side more so than try to fight them every single time. And I think even though you might not have believed in or felt the same way that Charlie Kirk felt about a lot of things, and I'm not saying anybody on this set agrees with everything that anybody believes in this whole world, we can't just hate people forever because we disagree with one thing or two things that they feel. We got to move forward. We're in this thing together. Team on me. Team on three. 1, 2, 3. Team. Our jobs are to distract people from the real world and kind of make
but then he moves on to his sports talk as he should. He is a sports commentator. But I thought that was a really good reaction. I think that if you want to look at how the majority of Americans are looking at the situation right now in the United States of America, they may be scared. They may be frightened. They may think that, you know, there's more violence headed our way, and for all we know, there might be. But I think when it comes to what they want to see in America, when it comes to what the majority of Americans want to see in America, it lines up exactly with what Pat is saying. We want peace. We want unity. We want to be able to just spend time with each other, and not allow politics to tear us apart. So, you know, great on Pat McAfee for covering this. I didn't know that he would speak about this. I tuned into it live to see if he would say anything. I was pleasantly surprised by what he had to say, and both the you know, the mixture of eloquence, verbosity, in depth, especially for him. You know, he tends to. I would not go to him for political commentary. Let's just put it that way. His ball knowledge is with ball, okay? But it was really great to hear him speak on Charlie Kirk that way. So good on Pat. That was really nice to see. All right, there are. Let's see. There are so many things I want to react to. Okay, I think I'm gonna react to three more videos about this. First one is going to be from Donald Trump himself. He's a content creator after all. The White House put this out. This is a statement from Donald Trump about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Turned off comments, but it's kind of like a corporate thing. But yeah, very short video. Let's check this out.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved. In shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith, and we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven.
Amen.
Our prayers are with his wife, Erica, the two young, beloved children, and his entire family, who he loved more than anything in the world. We ask God to watch over them in this terrible hour of heartache and pain. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible.
Very true. And I'm not the type of person to, after a right-winger is a victim of left-wing violence or whatever, to be like, oh, Donald Trump must tone down his rhetoric or else more people who agree with him will get killed. But I will say, when it comes to rhetoric, and I think that Donald Trump has gotten better at this lately, to be honest, this term, he has not gone nearly as hard on people as he has in the past. The election cycle, I will say, he was saying stuff that was extremely wild about Kamala Harris that I think was, even if it was true, was pretty uncalled for as a politician. But, I do hope that he does sort of take some time to reflect on himself and is like, hey, maybe I need to tone this down. I mean, here he's wording, these issues with rhetoric in America as a neutral issue, right? He's not saying the right needs to get better at this or the left needs to get better at this. He's saying like we need to get better at this. So hopefully he's including himself in that and he speaks better of people. I think that for many of the positions that Donald Trump has, he can back those up without slinging mud everywhere, right? He can speak civilly and he'll still be able to win his arguments like he has day in and day out. So, so he doesn't even need to resort to these mudslinging tactics. It's kind of a shame that he does do that so often. I understand it resonates with certain Americans, but I just don't think it's worth it, especially when, his reaction was to the media rhetoric being here. Then the media responds. He ratchets sometimes. Online people ratchet things up even further. Donald Trump may not be as bad as the other people in the political arena, but he's still not helping with a lot of things that he says. So I do hope that he shapes up how he speaks, moving forward.
For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence.
Oh! Now, I have had my own conspiracy theory about the situation. I think it's fine to say out loud. You never really want to be in a position where you're kind of in an Alex Jones, Sandy Hook type scenario, right? This is my own theory, my own opinion. I'm not saying that this is fact, but it's my opinion that the person who shot Charlie Kirk was working with at least one person in the crowd, having a plan to distract authorities, make them say, "Hey, I'm the shooter," and while he gets away. We do know that the first person who was arrested, there have been multiple people arrested and released, like catch and release. There were multiple people arrested. Authorities thought that they were the shooter, but the first person arrested was booked and charged in Utah for obstruction of justice. Now, I've heard people be like, oh, maybe it's for something, separate. I think it's very possible that they were like, oh, you're messing with us. You're trying to make it seem like you're trying to make us think that you're the shooter when you're not. So I wonder if this is a coordinated plan between multiple people. And I don't know who orchestrated it. I don't know if it was just grassroots, astroturfed, run by foreign intelligence. I have no idea. But the only reason I'm bringing up this opinion of mine, which normally I wouldn't be doing, is that Donald Trump here is hinting that there were multiple people who were involved in this situation, because he said, we will catch each and every person involved in this assassination. You don't say that if it's just one person. So I feel like my instincts are being a little validated here somewhat. But of course, you got to wait till we know more information to be sure.
Administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country.
Well, I mean, he's already been going after some people who were attacking ICE agents, which is fantastic. I've not heard about a lot of violence against judges. I think I've heard like one or two anecdotal cases, but I don't even remember those details. But there are council members, governors, federal level interns, different people across the country, different levels of government who have been attacked over the past few to several months. I feel like those should have been check engine lights. I feel like with each of those situations, maybe Donald Trump should be like, maybe the things in America are going pretty badly when it comes to how our country is trending in regards to violence. So I don't know. I think it's a little late to be like, oh, I guess now we'll do something since Charlie Kirk got assassinated. But I'm glad that at least he's noticing and is pledging to take action.
Country. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others.
That was a while ago.
Radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Tonight, I ask all Americans to commit themselves to the American values for which Charlie Kirk lived and died, the values of free speech, citizenship, the rule of law, and the patriotic devotion and love of God. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before.
True.
And it's not even close. May God bless his memory. May God watch over his family. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Amen. Very good address. Nice to see Donald Trump honor Charlie Kirk in that way. And also, as a reminder, if you guys didn't know, Charlie Kirk will be posthumously receiving the Medal of Honor, which I think is very much deserved, considering both what happened to him as well as what he's done for the country. Let's see. I'm gonna react to this as well. This is from the Wall Street Journal. It says, Charlie Kirk, a moment of silence on House floor, turns the shouting match. I heard about this, but I have not seen this. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what went down with my own eyes.
Please rise for a moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family.
What are they saying?
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Colorado rise?
Okay, hold on. It says, what does the Chiron say? Representative Lauren Boebert, Republican, Colorado, called for a verbal prayer, saying she believes, quote, silent prayer gets silent results. Oh my goodness, that's not even biblical. Please don't cloak your wishes for various styles and speeds of political rhetoric in Christianese. That is no. It's silent prayers are heard. Okay, I gotta calm it down, because I really don't like it when people misrepresent Christianity this way. Not at all true.
What purpose does the gentlelady from Colorado rise? Shh.
So it sounds like she asked for a moment of public prayer, or for Charlie is what she said. Sounds like. Someone said something about children.
Let's wait a minute.
Whoa! I heard an F-bomb there.
The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Shh. The House will be in order. Shh.
The Chiron says Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Republican from Florida, who was a close friend of Kirk, yelled back at Democrats. And we'll say this is Congress working about as well as he usually does.
The House will be in order.
Oh, wait, hold on. You know what? There must have been mics at the building. Hold on. Let me see if I can find a better... C-SPAN... Moment of silence for Charlie Kirk. C-SPAN has the best mics, man. Well, the Associated Press has their own footage. Does C-SPAN not have it? C-SPAN's got to have it. They're literally C-SPAN. I don't think they have it. Huh. I would have thought that they would have had it, but it looks like Associated Press used their own. Bro, that's so deceptive. They cut out the shouting at the end. Okay, CBS News has their own.
The chair would ask that all members present in the chamber and those...
Hold on, no, that's not it. It's not it. Moment of silence for Charlie Kirk in Congress. Okay, maybe they have better mics here.
The chair would ask that all members present in the chamber and those in the gallery, please. Shh. Let's wait a minute. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Shh. The House will be in order. Shh. The House will be in order. We will join prayer right after this, okay? The chair lays before the House a communication. The House will be in order.
There's got to be a way where, like, if you're being too rowdy and rambunctious in the halls of Congress, that you get removed. That's got to be a thing. Like, why wasn't that mechanism used in that moment? Because you had a point where they're just shouting and shouting and shouting. They weren't. They didn't seem like they wanted to stop talking anytime soon. So, first of all, of course, this is not a great way to pay your respects to Charlie Kirk. But second of all, you've also got to get to work. You got stuff to do, right? We've got a government shutdown looming that we've got to start working on. So I think that Mike Johnson should have been like, hey, if you're not quiet, we're going to have you removed from the chambers. That might have gotten some people to shut up. But that was overall disgraceful. I think I also hate, the right wingers as well. Those efforts to sort of, it seemed like they were virtue signaling, right? Being like, oh, we can't just pray quietly. We've got to pray out loud as well. Like, bro. I think that public prayer can oftentimes be performative. That's why I don't particularly like it on in content creation spaces like streams and stuff. Although I understand the sentiment, I think in some cases is genuine, but it does come off as somewhat performative. In a venue like this, it almost certainly would be. I think allowing the people to give their own personal, heartfelt prayers for Charlie Kirk, or just refrain from doing so by allowing it to be done privately, was a lot more appropriate, I think. So it was done the way it should have been done. Just the shouting afterwards was not it, fam. All right, we've got 2 more videos. Oh, hold on, wait. We have, I did want to read the chats. I got to make sure I read the chats. Bray Leno says he's back. Nice. Welcome back, Bray Leno. Says, I just saw a vid of JD Vance carrying the casket while crying. Man, the situation sucks. Trump is growing on me. I'm hearing people say that's what's happening. I'm hearing people say that, independents are now registering as Republicans. I'm hearing people say that people on the left are leaving the Democratic Party. I'm hearing people say that this is going to help Donald Trump win the 2028, not the 2028, he's not running, but this is going to help Republicans win the 2028 election. For me, I'm too busy being like, can we make it through the weekend without the country being on fire? Can I watch college football in peace? Can I play flag football in peace? Can I watch NFL Red Zone in peace? It's kind of where I'm at right now. I kind of want just the country to calm down. Maybe come Monday we can see what we can do by getting some Republicans elected and routing some Democrats through the ballot box. But for now, how about we kind of root for our country to heal is what I would say. It's what I would say. But in memory of Charlie Kirk, some other people decided to fight. There was a candlelight vigil done in Boise, Idaho for Charlie Kirk. This video has a compilation of various clips that were shot during the vigil. Things turned violent, unfortunately, but I think a lot of this also shows peaceful moments. So I'm just going to play the video, and we can kind of witness the Charlie Kirk candlelight vigil experience. Was that the guy who's laughing and then just stops because he realizes the camera's on him? That's horrible. One thing I'm not gonna do is I'm not gonna pretend that like I'm just like, oh, somber, crying every time I think about the situation. Like, this is a very serious, sad, and grievous thing that happened. And I think it's normal for everyone to get overwhelmed with emotion, but I think it's also important to allow yourself to experience the full range of emotions, right? So you may cry, completely normal. You may also smile when you see something beautiful in the world, as I think you should, right? So if you're with people that you love and you're smiling and laughing in the shadow of Charlie Kirk's death, I think that's perfectly okay. So long as you're not smiling and laughing at the death of Charlie Kirk himself, which I don't think was the case there. So kind of a silly thing is like, ha, look at the dude laughing. But in all seriousness, I think that, there's something important to be said there, because a lot of times people will look at, family members of those killed in tragedy or whatever and be like, oh, that person was smiling before they went to the camera. Or it's like, yeah, bro, they're human. Right? They're not machines that whenever someone around them dies, they flip on the sad switch, right? For a day, 2 days, 3 days, and all of a sudden it flips back. Like, I don't know, maybe you have a funny cousin who's up there at the podium with you. You never know. Like, wait, they're just gonna cry 24/7? They end up being dehydrated. It wouldn't work. So, in all seriousness, we should lay off on. I'm pretty sure people are going to be looking at stuff like this and criticizing people for smiling. Lay off on criticizing folks, especially those who are really close to Charlie Kirk, for smiling and stuff, because they're human beings, experience a full range of emotions. I will say that was pretty funny. I will say. Man, look at all that support, man. That's amazing. That's really cool. And I wonder how many people in this crowd are actually not conservatives. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. And one thing that's really cool too, look at this turnout. This is in Boise, Idaho. Boise, Idaho. Charlie Kirk was assassinated in Utah. His home state, I believe, fact check me if I'm wrong, but his home state is Arizona. Charlie Kirk in general has nothing to do with Boise, Idaho. But if we see this support for Charlie Kirk all the way in Boise, Idaho, imagine how much support that he has all across our country. Hopefully, especially from people all across the political aisle.
We lost a patriot today. We lost a fighter, and a fighter in the best way possible. We lost a gifted orator, a classy warrior for freedom. We lost a liberty hero. More importantly, we lost a man of faith, a child of God, a good Christian, a husband, a father, and a dear friend to many. Days like this are hard. It's hard to have those losses. Because of this loss, we need to turn it into winning in a way. Our responsibilities have just gotten a little bit greater today. We can honor Charlie Kirk by bearing his burdens, by taking up the work, by winning freedom, by resisting evil, and he was very good at identifying the evils out there in the world that are impacting families and children and every single one of us.
True.
We need to remember those teachings that he provided for us.
I would say that he has changed the lives of potentially millions of people. His impact is far-reaching, and we're never going to really know what he did, but I would argue that he absolutely was one of the biggest force multipliers for getting President Donald Trump reelected. Jesus told his followers in the book of John, chapter 15, that greater love has no man than this, that a man laid down his life for his friends. And I would stand here in front of you and I would say Charlie Kirk laid down his life every single day that he was out there in front of the nation, surrounded by people who were political allies, people who were curious, trying to learn and educate themselves into maybe a possibly different worldview, but also he faced a lot of enemies, and he did so with courage and without shame. And my exhortation to everybody gathered here tonight is, don't be silenced. Do not be cowered into submission by people who have radical, fundamental, political, and religious disagreements with you. We all are human.
I agree. Completely agree. And I think, I've not been streaming here as much. I've been spending a lot of time, with people in real life, and also when I've not been going out doing things with people, I've just been chilling, really. It's good to have a day or a night where you're not actually doing anything. So my 1 or 2 nights where I'm not doing anything of the week, that's basically what I've been doing. But those are nights and evenings that are filled with inaction. I will say, for me, I enjoy streaming so much that is, I end up leaving the stream more energized than I went into it. So it's quite enjoyable for me. But Charlie Kirk, this passing away of him is like, well, I feel like I should take more opportunities to stream more often. If for no other reason than the fact that in America, at least for now, we have the ability to speak our mind and use the First Amendment and freedom of speech to spread whatever message we like. Some people use it just to spread lies. I just like doing political commentary, a mixture of speaking from a center-right perspective, but also speaking from a Christian perspective. And, I look at Charlie Kirk passing away and I'm like, well, this guy is like 31. Look at all that he's done. The least I could do is stream once a week. To be fair, there are big stories that I could be lending honestly somewhat unique perspectives to, because I like to think that I approach stories from a somewhat unique position. Some people may not like that, but I do. And there are stories that I've missed, I think, over the past 2 weeks or so that, because I've been relying on old clips from old VODs, I haven't been able to keep up with things. And it's like, well, sometimes I have ideas that people are not saying online. And, maybe it's more important for me to, stream more frequently and make my voice heard. Charlie Kirk didn't know how many chances that he would have to spread his message. And neither did I. I could get hit and run tomorrow. You never know. So maybe, I think we all should sort of use it as a moment to make sure that we're making the best use of our time, in that we are saying the things that are most important while we still can.
Humans, we all bleed, we all suffer, we all cry. And just like we saw with Charlie Kirk tonight, he's leaving behind devastated and heartbroken family members, his wife, his little kids, his family. Like, I can't even begin to imagine what he's going through tonight. So I would like to close my time.
Those hecklers? Are those counter protesters? I thought it was just one dude. I thought it was just one loser riding around on a scooter. I didn't. That's awful.
If you would join me, please.
Yeah, the cops are there.
He's black and he's a sellout. He's black and he's a sellout with the Broncos shirt. You a sellout, boy. ACJ. We know you. Hey, put me online, baby. Put me online. You saw what they did on that free speech. I came out here with free speech. Y'all came with this. Hey, 30, 40 motherfuckers. Give me the ones, baby. Shoot the ones with me. Anybody.
Look at this embarrassment.
Fuck all y'all. Fuck Charlie Kirk.
Fuck you.
Fuck Charlie Kirk.
Look at this guy.
You could have removed this guy. Like, I think knowing the temperature or knowing what things are like here, there's a law. It's called like fighting words or whatever. People have been bringing it up because Donald Trump invoked it when he was talking about banning the burning of the American flag on federal grounds, which one of those stories that I wish I was streaming to cover at the time that it happened. But there is a law. It's like if you're running around spreading fighting words, trying to incite violence or whatever, that's illegal. I think that what he's saying here falls under that umbrella. There are cops here, but I think that if they went after every single person who was speaking in this manner, they would be swiftly outnumbered. Very unfortunate, but I think that what he's doing here is illegal. I wish there were more cops here to respond appropriately. Whoa. Oh, it's that guy. No, they gotta get him out of there. No. I'm hearing like one or two people saying stop, but like, why are there not more people like being like, hey, get off of him, leave him alone? Also, the cops are not doing their job either. In situations like these, the cops' jobs are to keep the protesters and the counter protesters separated, because they can cause instances of violence. In cases where that separation broke down, such as the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally, you see violence break out. It's happened in certain Black Lives Matter protests as well. I think that this could have been prevented if the cops were doing their job a little bit better, or at least they were more staffed so they could react appropriately. Because if they try to get in between this amount of people, I mean, good luck. I don't think that they had the numbers to even respond appropriately. But maybe they didn't even know what this is going to become. No, get him out of there. Get him out of there. Okay, we're seeing some people. Yeah, okay, good. We're seeing some people saying they actually leave him alone. No, don't do that. The police need to get him out of here.
Everyone back up. Everyone back up.
Okay, good to see the cops doing their job here. Good. Finally, they're dragging that dude out. And I saw a clip of this, and this is one of the things that I was watching. I was like, who's making the Wikipedia article for Civil War II? Because like, if these are the types of things that are happening all across the country, then it's like, not great. But thankfully, from what I've heard, this only happened in Boise, Idaho. We'll see, got to give it a few more days. It's the weekend. A lot of people are off work soon. So, but hopefully it doesn't spill. These types of gatherings don't spill into more violence like this. And the cops respond appropriately. Yeah, we need more cops.
Come on, everybody, peaceful. They're trying to goad you. Be peaceful. Don't fall for it. They got video too. Be peaceful. Let them go.
Charlie wanted.
That's true.
Peaceful.
When we say enough's enough, I'm done. I'm done being nice.
I didn't ask for no help.
You're
You asked for help. You got,
oh, yeah, you think I asked for help? My teacher said I'd ask for them all these motherfuckers.
Oh, you wouldn't.
Oh, yeah?
Old man.
Get out of the street.
Get out of the street.
They're challenging each other to fights. The police should be breaking that up. They're letting this go on for far too long.
You're not the one in the street, y'all. You are. You're a sellout. You are a sellout. You ain't Mexican. You ain't Mexican. You pass for white, bitch. You go in the store, they treat you good. You know why? You like talking around people like that?
That is like the most racist thing I've heard all week, and I've heard clips of Nick Fuentes. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Handle his ass now.
Wait, what happened?
You good. You know why? You like talking around people like that?
Oh. Yeah, because he punched him.
You won't fucking touch me. You will back up. Back the fuck up for me, you motherfucker.
Well, that guy in the gay backpack, you know, if the police had just arrested him and got him out of the area, none of this would have happened. He was the only one in the left-wing crowd, I from what I could tell, who was goading successfully the Charlie Kirk supporters. He was the only one. Now, yes, you throw a punch at that dude, yeah, you should go to the clink as well, but that wouldn't have happened if, you know, the cops had handled this appropriately, got that one guy out of there. It's unfortunate, man. This didn't need to happen like this.
I will not back up for you. I'm not fucking afraid of you. You don't need to be afraid of me. I didn't see you.
And see, the annoying thing is, like, that guy in the gay backpack got what he wanted.
Why is he handcuffed? He fucking went first. One by one. Who's next?
Who's next? That's an insane thing to say.
We just sit on our freaking hands. Continue praying.
We thank you, Lord, for protection upon Charlie Kirk's family and all those that speak the truth in love. We just love you, Lord, and we thank you, and we just praise you. We ask for protection upon this nation. Lord, we just thank you and praise you for all that you do. We do all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
There are people of different colors. Stop fucking.
That was a bit of a jump scare. Okay. Let's resume. We're on YouTube. We're not on Kick.
There are people of different colors. Stop fucking with them.
There are all types of different people here. Apparently. I will say, if we've got kids here, this is not great. A whole lot of cursing. We've got a little bit of violence. I guess that everyone who came here knew it was going to get violent, but it's kind of a shame that these kids had to be around such a tense environment like this. Okay, well, it looks like things calmed down, which is really good. It also looks like the crowd grew, which is also cool. Hopefully, I don't know the scope of like the violence, whatever. But hopefully, it did not last for the majority of the vigil. Let's see, we've got a commenter here. So this is Foggy Mountain Man 9138 says, have you noticed that no cities are burned down? Yeah, I have. Robert Huster 1503 says, I get we are being goaded, but the far left is showing how disgusting they can be. R.I.P. Charlie. Very true. But I will say, your actions, reactions, and responses are all your fault. You can't really blame anyone else for you getting upset and losing your cool and hating someone else, right? You can say you were provoked, but you still threw the punch. So yeah, very disappointing. But I'm extremely disappointed as well that the cops were not able to tamp this down. I feel like this could have been over before it even started with the violence and the brawls in the crowd, but you know. All right, last video of the night. I know this is running very long in the tooth, but I think that for a night like this, it's certainly worth it. We have this clip here from the Stephen A. Smith show, which I guess airs on SiriusXM. I didn't know this aired at SiriusXM. I thought it was just an internet show. But he had a response to Charlie Kirk. I saw a very brief clip of this, and it was fantastic. I'm going to react to this clip here. It's probably going to have his thoughts in full.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you courtesy of SiriusXM Channel 82 Mad Dog Sports Radio. Number to call up, as always, is 888 Mad Dog 6. That's 888 Mad Dog 6. That's 888-623-3646. And also, if you want to send in your voicemail messages because you can't get me on the line, you can always go to SiriusXM.com/GetSirius. That's SiriusXM.com/GetSirius to send in your voicemail messages. I'll even grade them, and if you attach your phone number to you, I might even call you back and put you on the air to hear what you have to say. Normally, as you well know, I'm somebody that comes out like a bat out of hell. I love doing radio. I love being back at Mad Dog Sports Radio. I like to lead with my passion and my fervor to really start the day, start the afternoon, so to speak. But if I sound a little bit, if not a lot, different, you can use the word melancholy, you can use the word sad or whatever. It's because I'm not in that kind of mood today. I'm going to be real. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be my true Stephen A. self. Whoever the hell I am is who I am. That's the way it goes. And I'm sitting up here this afternoon, the afternoon on the East Coast, the morning on the West Coast, and I want to thank the world of sports. We got a Thursday night game coming up tonight. Watch the Commanders against the Green Bay Packers, and I know that, and I'm getting ready to talk about that. We've got news emanating out of the NBA involving Kawhi Leonard. I'm going to talk about that. The WNBA season is coming to an end. How much that means to you, if anything at all, without the services of Caitlin Clark. I'm going to talk about that, along with, of course, I'm in Vegas as we speak, in our SiriusXM Vegas studios, because I'm here for the big fight between Saul Canelo Alvarez, defending his 168-pound super middleweight championship against Terrence Crawford, undefeated at 41-0 with 31 KOs, which may be the fight of the decade. So we're all looking forward to talking about those things, but that's not what's on my mind. What's on my mind was the shooting that happened yesterday in Utah. And we can slice it any way we want to, but what a horrific thing to see. It's all over the news. It's all over YouTube. It's everywhere. And I challenge anybody to take a look at that and tell me that you didn't cringe. I'm happy.
I think cringe doesn't describe the half of what we felt watching that clip.
About sports today, because it's supposed to be a reprieve, something that pulls you away from life's travails and what truly, truly ails us all.
One thing I can't understand, honestly, if there's one thing that I could ever do in content creation, would actually be to emulate sports talk. And I know that there are programs that have similar formats. When I'm talking, like, honestly, Piers Morgan Unlimited, Piers Morgan Uncensored and First Take, format-wise, they're not all that different. But one thing I love about sports talk, one thing that kind of draws me in, even though I don't really follow pro sports that closely, I've always loved talk shows. I love listening to talk radio, podcasts, all that. But what's special about sports talk is, especially on television, people will argue, extremely passionately, and they are not, it's not personal, right? They don't take it so seriously that they hate the other person because they disagree with what they're saying. That's never something that I've seen, really. There's been like perceived beef. There's maybe been like Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp beefing across the table. Other than that, it's not personal. And I think if there's one thing I could do in content creation, I would love to do is make a sports talk type program where you've got people who disagree, but they're good friends and they don't take it seriously. They don't call each other like racist or whatever. You can criticize whatever position or legislation or policy, however you like. But I think it doesn't need to get personal, right? It shouldn't be like if you vote a certain way, I'm not seeing you on Thanksgiving. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's like, if you put money on the Cowboys to win on Sunday, then I'm not seeing you on Thanksgiving. That's also ridiculous. Now, I do know there are some families who roll like that, unfortunately. But it's not as prominent in the sports world as it is in the world of politics, which is extremely unfortunate. And I have extremely fruitful dialogues with people across the aisle that I know in person. One of them is Craig of the Craig Cam fame. Actually, I was rewatching an older clip of my conversation I had with him about immigration, where there are things that we really disagree on immigration. I was watching over the clip as I was editing it, I think a few days ago, maybe a week ago. And then as I was watching it, I was like, in this conversation, I didn't really push back on him too much, even though there were things that even in the moment I was like, you're wrong about this. I disagree with this. But after I edited the video, I watched it all the way through, and I was like, I'm really glad I did what I did. And I thought about making a separate video about this. I may just throw it in here. I'm really glad that I had the conversation the way that I did, because I love internet debates about politics. I would love to have some debates with people in my Discord server about various things. It's just kind of difficult because sometimes schedules don't line up, or it's a Canadian, and I'm not well versed in Canadian politics, so it's hard to debate on that. But for me and Craig, in that I guess the interview maybe is the right way to put it. We were literally just sitting and talking while waiting for a video game to load that we were trying to play together. I thought he was wrong, and I was watching the clip and I was like, oh, I could have even pinned him against the wall on that one. I could have had him on the ropes on that one. I could have gone at him, but I didn't. And I rewatched and I was like, you know what? This is actually really good. I want to come back and actually have a proper debate with him, but in the moment I was there to learn. In the beginning of the segment, I was like, I have not heard we have not spoken long form about immigration. Let's do it. So it was very much me learning the nuances of his position, because he also likes to say this, that I am extremely verbose and perhaps well-spoken when it comes to writing things in written messages and typing things out in texts. He is more of a spoken person. So there have actually been times where we were talking about something and we were going back and forth so much and neither of us were busy, so he called me and then we talk. And so in that conversation, I was learning from him what his perspective was, maybe poking some things, but not really to prove myself right as I would have in a proper debate, which I wouldn't be opposed to doing at some point in the future still, but just to learn where he was coming from. Because especially in immigration, I'm really curious as to the rationale that people use. And so to have a conversation where it's like that, and you can even get loud, right? Like sports talk shows do, but it's not personal. You don't hate each other over it. Is something that I wish we had in politics, and I don't think that we do. Even with shows like Breaking Points, sometimes things get so tense that you wonder if they're still friends. Sometimes in stuff like The Hill, they actually do end up blowing up aspects of the show because, the disagreement becomes too sharp and someone takes it personally, so someone gets the boot. I want politics on television to be more like First Take and less like whatever Abby Phillips' show is, right? Shouting matches between people who seem to hate each other, right? people spewing vitriolic rhetoric back and forth. And I actually kind of want to thank Stephen A. Smith for modeling what's respectful disagreement looks like on television. I just think it's a shame that no one else is emulating that when it comes to politics. But I'm getting kind of off track. It's kind of a tangent, something I've always wanted to say on stream. Let's get back to what he has to say here.
And I'm not going to get into any politics or anything like that. SiriusXM Mad Dog Sports Radio ain't the place for that. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to be honest with the listeners out there everywhere to let you know that sports isn't the only thing on my mind, but I'm ecstatic that I'm still entrenched in the world of sports. And I get to talk about games and marvelous professional and collegiate athletes and storylines that ultimately make you say, come hell or high water, at the end of the day, it's just a game.
Exactly.
There's real life stuff going on in this world. And we saw a right-wing conservative host, because that's what he was, and that's what they labeled Charlie Kirk. And we saw this man speaking in Utah at Utah Valley University, and we saw him struck by a bullet in his neck. We saw blood gushing out immediately, and it didn't take long before he was pronounced dead at the age of 31, courtesy of an assassin's bullet. A bullet from a rifle that was lodged against him from 200 yards away. The part that really resonates with me, outside of the obvious, is that he had two children, younger than 5 years of age. Both were in attendance and saw their father get gunned down. He had a wife, their mother, who was in attendance, who saw her husband get gunned down. In the world that we're living in today, I don't care who you are. You're white, you're black, you're Hispanic, you're Asian, you're Native American, you're Jewish, you're Catholic, you're Christian. I don't care. At some point in time, the one thing that sports needs to remind us about, the importance, the appreciation that we should all embrace, is how it brings all of us together. Mm-hmm. No matter your color or creed, no matter your ethnicity, no matter your upbringing, your background, etc., when you wear the same uniform as somebody else, when you play in the same league as another contemporary, when the sacrifices that you make to elevate yourself to a certain level is something that's mirrored by hundreds, if not thousands, of other individuals out there, reminds us all that we're all God's children. And that universally, when we see something like that transpired,
we're not all saved. I know what he means, though, is that we've all been created in the image of God, and he's put us down here to live amongst one another intentionally. So get along, right? If you got like two kids in the playpen and they're fighting, it's like, no, I'm putting you here, behave and get along. Like, I think from that perspective, yes, I get the whole God's children thing. I'm a Christian, right? So I if I'm going to have something on air, I want to make sure that the theology is on point. So sorry if I sound pedantic on that, but that's just how I be.
And that universally, when we see something like that transpired, we got to collectively come together and understand that the world that we're witnessing and the world that we're living is pretty damn messed up. And there's a lot more love and a lot more brotherhood and sisterhood and humanity that goes on in this world that doesn't. Yet, the few who are evil amongst us are the ones that screech and make the most noise. Mm-hmm. And it's affecting us in a way where it's getting to a point where you're going to get scared to walk out in the streets. You're going to get scared to show love and affection and even to say hello to your fellow man and woman, your neighbor.
I hope not. But Stephen A. Smith is also someone you can use as a normal person avatar, right? He's like he's like the uncle at the Thanksgiving dinner table who's like ranting about the sports team while the game is on in the other room, right? Or he's on his knees crying because his team is losing the Cowboys and Redskins game, right? He is also a normal person. So this is also a normal person reaction. So this, Pat McAfee leaned into the hope of what we'd like to see in the world in the future, in our utopia, in our minds. Stephen A. Smith here is speaking on the fear of what things are like now and how they could look if things don't change in the country.
And sports is so important now more than ever before, because you know something? When you look at Lambeau Field tonight in Green Bay, Wisconsin, when the Green Bay Packers host the Washington Commanders, you had better believe 60,000 plus are going to be at that stadium. You had better believe that millions are going to be watching. You had better believe that whether it's on radio or television or anywhere else, you're going to see people talking about the game. And it's important because it shows this common ground. There's a common denominator. There's a common love and affection. Sports is worth a multi-billion-dollar industry, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, whether it's baseball, for a reason. Because it brings us joy. And it reminds us all how we can truly get along. And that the vitriol and the evil and the viciousness that exists in this world, it ain't the many, it's the few. But it also needs to remind us that we got to come together and speak up and speak out against those evil people, against those with evil tendencies, against those who are insidious and iniquitous and looking to do anything they can to harm us and the fabric of our society.
Sorry, when I listen to Stephen A. Smith, I just can't help but smile. He said iniquitous. I love this man's vocabulary. Amazing. Speak on. Continue.
I'm a black man born in America. I know what problems that exist in this country. But I also know there's far more good people than there are bad people in this country, regardless of who you are, what your ethnic background is. White, black, Hispanic, and beyond. I'm in a studio here in Las Vegas, and I'm looking outside, and I see people looking at me and smiling and saying, "What's up, Stephen?" They don't look anything like me. And I don't care, because they're showing me love, and I'm showing love right back to them. At some point in time, we got to recognize, can't just speak about it. Can't just give lip service to when such a vile act takes place. And we're going to give lip service to the tragedy of the moment, and then within 24 hours, we move on with our lives like nothing happened. Something did happen. Don't care what his political beliefs were. I don't care what he felt. I care about the fact that a man was gunned down in front of two of his children who are 5 years of age or less. That he's dead at the age of 31. That his wife is a widow. That his children are fatherless. Because his ideas and his beliefs differed from somebody else, apparently. And then I'm going online and I'm seeing people celebrating it. Shame. Shame on you. I have a job to do when I'm on Mad Dog Sports Radio to talk sports, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. But make no mistake about it, when I say that I'm a conscientious observer, that I'm an American citizen, that I'm just somebody who cares, and I'm somebody who believes in and tries to promote the importance of having a core decency attached to every one of us as human beings, I mean it. I mean it. Props to the New York Yankees organization last night for having a moment of silence. If you're a left winger instead of a right winger, you might not have liked that. You're missing the point. This man was shot and killed from 200 yards away in front of his wife and children. and thousands of onlookers who had come to see him, Mr. Charlie Kirk, who had been going from campus to campus, simply debating his ideas against those who might differ from him. That's all.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Him getting shot is the exact opposite of what he wanted to see in the world and what he promoted, right? And called for completely. People online, or some people online, I'm saying, not many. Some people online are saying that he was calling for the deaths of trans people and all this stuff. Like, no, those are all just lies, right? He was not a violent person at all, or a supporter of violence. He's very, very, very peaceful. And his big thing was, speaking your mind peacefully, right? In debating and stepping across the aisle and shaking people's hands.
And his life was taken. He's gone at 31, just because he expressed thoughts that differed from somebody else, apparently. And some might blame it because, oh my God, he's friends with the president. And they may not be a Donald Trump supporter. I'm saying bump all that. He's a human being living in the United States of America. This is America. We're not supposed to condone stuff like this. Mm-hmm. We're not supposed to say it's okay. I don't give a damn who you are, black, white, or anything in between. You're a human being. That's your fellow man and fellow woman out there. That's your fellow brother and fellow sister out there. You got no business thinking like that. And you damn sure have no business doing something as heinous as that shooter who's still on a loose, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Crazy. I actually did look it up. They still don't have him. Wild. It's like 36 hours since it happened? Maybe I'm exaggerating. By now, this video might be up in a week, and we still might not know who the shooter is. So it is kind of crazy. The more time that goes on, actually, the less I believe that we're actually going to get the shooter. He might be out of the country for all we know.
As that shooter who's still on a loose, by the way. So I applaud the New York Yankees for having a moment of silence. I hope the FBI and law enforcement catch this individual and do what needs to be done with him, whatever that may be. We will go on with our lives because that's the way things go. We will discuss sports on this channel, on this show, because it's what we do. It's what the listener is looking for, as they should. But it doesn't mean that along the way, you strip yourself of your own humanity and you negate recalling and remembering who you are and what you stand for and what's most important. And that's caring enough about yourself and your fellow man and your fellow woman never to inflict violence upon anybody, never to do something like this. And certainly never to celebrate it. Sports does so much for us. It doesn't just give us something to cheer about. It's the fact that it allows us to cheer together. You're going to see Green Bay fans at Lambeau Field tonight in all colored shapes and sizes. Mm-hmm. You're going to see the same thing when the Commanders host a game, or one of the other 32 NFL teams do the same. And the NBA season comes, you're going to see that too. And as the Major League Baseball playoffs are forthcoming, you're going to see that too. And right
as a college football aficionado, as is hopefully evident by the fact that I literally have an Ohio State jacket, I will say, yet again, I am miffed and even feel somewhat disrespected that college football often is left out of the conversation about major sports. I wish he had mentioned it. I wish he had included that. Yes, I am being petty and silly. But such is my nature.
Here on Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio, my background is entirely different than Mad Dog Russo. I imagine if we probed one another and we spoke about such things, our politics might be a little bit different. The same applies to Adam Shine. The same applies to Katie Nolan. The same applies to Steve Torrey and a bunch of other folks, and Eric Spitzer and everybody else associated with Sirius XM, Mad Dog Sports Radio, and all of Sirius XM. Howard Stern included, and everybody else, including Megyn Kelly. I don't care. They're good people. I'm proud to know them. I'm proud to be on Mad Dog Sports Radio. I'm proud to call that man my brother from another mother. At some point in time, we got to remember that, and remember to remind one another that there's far more love in this world than hate. And not allow evil and hate to dominate us and to strip us of what truly makes us the greatest nation in the world. It's that mosaic that we live under, a willingness to embrace any and all and find a way to agree without being disagreeable. Not even because we may want to all the time, but because we know it's what's best for a society to be civilized and positioned to prosper. Someone forgot about that yesterday in murdering Charlie Kirk. Others forgot about it by parading online and celebrating an evil, vile occurrence. Most of us are better than that. Let's show that. And let's begin by doing that and using sports to do it, because sports usually does come to the rescue after all. And we certainly needed sports to do that for us today. 888 Mad Dog 6 is the number to call up. That's 888-623-3646. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio. Back with your calls, plus some voicemails at SiriusXM.com/GetSerious. More of the Stephen A. Smith Show coming your way in just a minute.
A great segment. Amazing segment. Ozzie McGuire here saying, when you silenced the man who wanted to sit down and talk with you, you will not like the man who has left. Ooh, that's gotta be a quote. That's too fire to not be a famous quote. That's actually incredible. I might quote that. I might run around online and quote that. I'm actually seeing that spread around online. I don't know who the original poster is of this. I mean, let me see. Yeah, I'm not seeing the original poster of this, but I am seeing this all across the internet. Whew. Whew. And that's one of the fears, of course, that comes with this entire situation. Criticus Maximus here is saying, what is most concerning to me is the amount of people on the internet that are celebrating this or saying he had it coming is shocking. Well, of course, remember, it's not the majority of folks, right? The majority of folks don't have that sentiment. It says, I can tolerate almost anyone regardless of their beliefs. I cannot tolerate anyone who would celebrate someone getting killed over their beliefs. Yes. But don't try to kill them, okay? Because it's also a problem. And then lastly, I'm going to wrap up with this comment here. It says, newfound respect for this man. Thank you, Stephen, for standing on moral clarity. Fantastic, and a much needed statement and call for peace from famous normal person avatar Stephen A. Smith. In keeping with the somber tone of the stream, more or less, you know me, I like making jokes, but yeah, in keeping with that, I've chosen not to run any intro or outro music. I am going to choose not to run any outro music for the end of the stream. I'm going to be wrapping things up. It seems like the chat died down as well. But yeah, this weekend, touch some grass, watch some sports, maybe drink a little, maybe something non-alcoholic. Have fun. Spread positivity. If you are religious, go to church and spend time with your local body of believers. If you are not religious, go to church and find a body of believers. Because believe me, being in the Word and being part of a local church body certainly makes a world of difference, especially in times like these. But yeah, touch grass. And if you look up, you'll see the sun shining once again. But hopefully I gave you guys a little bit of hope. I know this is not the happiest of days, but this is the best that I can do. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you want to talk more with me or send me things to react to, join my Discord. The link is dscrd.ntnwb.cc. It's the place you want to be if you want to chat with me. Also, check out the 9WB Highlights channel. I upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Peace out, y'all.